Good morning on this sunny Friday. Sorry I missed you last week as I was attending a strategic planning session with other convention bureau leaders discussing what's happening to our industry. As you can imagine, it was mainly grim, but there are municipalities in our state that are doing well. We agreed as a team that we all need to work together to bring the number of cases down and make sure that our state is seen as safe to travel to. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the beautiful weather this week and weekend on what was supposed to be the 43rd annual Ryder Cup here in Wisconsin at Whistling Straits. People from all over the world would have seen our beautiful fall colors and the amazing weather we are blessed to have. Let's hope that next year's weather cooperates. Today, we are pleased to bring you celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, but as has become our custom, I do want to share some weekly industry updates first and some partner business and event announcements. Here's a look at the most recent STAR report. There wasn't a lot of movement week over week. We are up slightly in occupancy for both downtown and the county. Weekdays are averaging 30% occupancy and weekends are at 47% for the county. On Tuesday, Governor Evers announced that he has extended the public health emergency order and face covering mandate for the state of Wisconsin until November 21st, due to the continued rise in positive COVID cases around the state. It was also announced that due to the surge in positive cases in Wisconsin, the state has been added back onto the Chicago quarantine list. However, it should be noted that the city of Milwaukee is experiencing a smaller percentage of new cases, however, on the rise. Rest assured that we will continue to work with you and the City of Milwaukee Health Department to promote Milwaukee as a safe destination. Milwaukee County has created the Small Business Recovery Initiative grant program to provide support to small businesses by lessening the economic impact due to COVID-19. Entrepreneurs of color, women, and veterans are encouraged to apply, and the application deadline is October 1st at 5 p.m. The deadline for the COVID-19 Cultural Organization Grant Program is quickly approaching. If you are a music, visual art, live performance, or other cultural organization who has been hit hard by the pandemic, please be sure to get your application submitted by next Wednesday, September 30th at 2 p.m. We want to extend a huge congratulations to our two-time MVP, Giannis. I'm just going to say Giannis. We in Milwaukee know that the Greek Freak is an MVP off the court too, which is why we featured him in our 2 commercials produced by Hanson Dodge earlier this year. If you haven't seen them, you can watch them both on our website. Walker's Point Festival Week has been happening all week long, and our staff has had a great time heading out into the neighborhood and supporting all of the incredible restaurants, breweries, shops, and art galleries in the area. Thanks to Botana's, Transfer Pizzeria, Anodyne Coffee, Morel, Mobcraft Brewing, Purple Door, Stacked, Foamation, Onesta, Great Lakes Distillery, Clock Shadow Creamery, Camino, and La Dama for their incredible hospitality. We will be back soon. This year's 10 Days in Tosa and West Allis event is underway and runs through next week, Wednesday. So head out to your favorite Tosa or West Allis restaurant or retail shop and take advantage of the great deals they're offering. Information on participating businesses can be found on their website. A few of us dined last night at Story Hill BKC and it was delicious. They are opening for lunch next week, so make sure to read my weekly emails for details on their new hours. Wisconsin is joining several states in celebrating September as International Underground Railroad Month by highlighting the state's rich abolitionist history and Wisconsin's role in helping freedom seekers on their secret journey. Visit travelwisconsin.com to learn more about Wisconsin's connection to the Underground Railroad and the historic sites where leaders and change agents have contributed positively to the civil rights movements. It's Oktoberfest season, and Kegel's Inn is ready to celebrate with Oktoberfest on the lake this weekend. There will be safe and socially distanced tables outdoors on Fitch Plaza at the War Memorial Center, food and German beer from Kegel's Inn, live music, beautiful lake views, and tons of Gemütlichkeit. And best of all, proceeds will go towards supporting the War Memorial Center. Spreckerfest is this Saturday from 12 to 5 at Sprecher Brewery, but this year it will be a drive-through Oktoberfest celebration. They'll be offering their Oktoberfest beer, limited release Belgian quad liter, pretzel with beer mustard, and much more. You can order ahead of time at spreckerfest.com or pick up your items day of, but get there early because the first 100 drive-through attendees will receive a free 4-pack of energy root beer. And let me tell you, that is delicious. Doors Open will kick off tomorrow and run through October 11th, and this year will be a mix of virtual and self-guided neighborhood tours. You'll be able to take a virtual tour of the new Bradley Symphony Center, virtual neighborhood tours, or download a neighborhood activity book to get the whole family involved. View some virtual events, and some virtual events will require pre-registration, so be sure to visit Historic Milwaukee's website to learn more. First Stage has announced a new special relief initiative called Hope Fund. Donations to this fund will help support the individuals who make it possible for First Stage to continue to transform lives through theater by engaging, enlightening, and entertaining and educating. Right now is the perfect time to donate because all of the charitable gifts made to the Hope Fund are being matched 1-to-1 up to $100,000 by the Molitor Foundation. If you're interested in donating to help First Stage continue their incredible mission, please head to their website. If you've been in the Harbor District this past week, you may have seen some new lights on the horizon. The installation of the lighting for the first phase of the Light the Home project is nearly complete and testing has begun. The Light the Home team anticipates the project will officially unveil in late October, and from what we've seen, we are super excited and cannot wait. Our next partner cafe will be Wednesday, September 30th, with X Fabula talking about its storytelling workshops for community and corporate events. As a reminder, this quick 15-minute chat over lunch, so we hope you can call and listen in, and if you're interested in being featured on a partner cafe, please contact Meg McKenna in our office. On next week's Friday webinar, you'll hear from some of our newest small event venues in Milwaukee and what they are doing to manage book business moving forward. We have St. James 1868, Story Hill Firehouse, and the Cactus Club committed to speak at this point. Now, before I turn this over to the main event, I did want to highlight one more event taking place next week. Professional Dimensions is virtually hosting their second annual Ideation Summit. Full disclosure, I sit on the board, and we believe now more than ever that we must continue to take this diversity conversation to the next level in Milwaukee. The seminar is only $25, and it is fully intended to disrupt your thinking about diversity, flip it on its head, and give you the practical tools to ensure that we are building a world in which we all can thrive. Please visit their website at professionaldimensions.org to register. Now, let's get to the webinar celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. We have 3 wonderful speakers for you today representing the work and contributions to Milwaukee's community and the Hispanic community. Before we get to it, I would like to introduce you to our moderator, one of Visit Milwaukee's newest senior leaders and someone who has been instrumental in helping us to ride out this COVID storm. Luis Ayala, our new Vice President of Finance at Visit Milwaukee, arrived here just as COVID shut down much of our community at the end of March. Luis has been rolling up his sleeves and shepherding our organizations through our own financial reprojections for 2020 and 2021. He has his MBA from the University of Miami School of Business and came to lend his talents to Visit with a deep corporate and nonprofit background. He has worked for La Causa, Harley-Davidson Motor Company, Miller Brewing, and Johnson & Johnson. He is a lifelong resident of Milwaukee, a connoisseur of rye whiskey, a hobby that may or may not have proven handy after his long days and hours keeping Visit Milwaukee's financial ship sailing through the COVID waters. So without further ado, Luis, turn on your camera and take over.
Thank you so much, Peggy, for that introduction. I actually requested some walk-up music, which evidently did not get added. I said, hey, hook me up with a little Ricky Martin or Bad Bunny, but apparently that was too much to ask for the team. But no, in all seriousness, happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to this panel discussion and welcome to Hispanic Heritage Month. It is great pleasure and honor of mine to be involved with an organization that does this, actually recognizes the contributions of the Hispanic community. So thanks to Peggy and thanks to the Visit Milwaukee team for putting these things together. So our program today will really consist of a nice little journey into the Hispanic community. Hopefully you'll learn some good tidbits about the Latino community. We'll talk about art, we'll talk about education, we'll talk about business. We'll obviously try to chime that in and tie it into what's going on in the modern day world today, and hopefully offer you some fun facts and some good learnings about what it is and what's going on in the Latino community, and hopefully learn something that you haven't known or learned before. So that is the objective of today's discussion. And again, we're glad for you to be part of our discussion. Want to kick it off now with our first speaker. And our first speaker comes to us from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Mr. Alberto Maldonado, who is the Chief Administrative and Executive Officer of the Roberto Hernandez Center, which from those of you that don't know, that is a resource center within the UWM system that offers academic support and community engagement and enrichment support to many Latino students around the city and around the state who attend the university. He is also the co-lead for the Committee for Hispanic Student Initiatives and also the chair and founding member of the Undocumented Student Task Force. So for the past 22 years, Alberto has dedicated his career to not only UWM education, but education among the Latino communities. We are certainly happy to have him on board and appreciative of his efforts. And on a personal note, not only are we both fellow countrymen, so we're both from Puerto Rico, but we go back years and years and years. We actually studied together at UWM when I was there at the UWM Business School. So we share a lot of stories and a lot of tidbits between the two of us. So welcome, brother, and thank you for taking the time for doing this. And what we'll do now is we'll let Alberto have the floor and kind of bring us up to speed on what is the Roberto Hernandez Center and what he does for the community and programs that may help Latino students in the business world as well. So again, good morning, thank you, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Luis. And the feeling is mutual to be here, not only with you as the moderator of this important conversation, right? Hispanic Heritage Month is something that, even though happens once a year, you and I know that we find ourselves celebrating throughout the year in many respects. So delighted to be here. Like Luis said, I'm the director of the Roberto Hernandez Center at UW Milwaukee. We're excited. This is an exciting year in the midst of all the things that we all know are happening. We are excited because we have reached a very important milestone in our history as a center. We turned 50. So is a number of different organizations in the community like UCC and others. The Brewers are 50. The Admirals are 50. So we're in good company reaching this milestone here in the city of Milwaukee. And our work has always, departed from three important pillars. Number one, to provide access and provide support, academic support to the Latino students in this region. Number two, to be a bridge to the community, right? To be a connecting point to the Milwaukee community, and work with a number of different nonprofits, working with the families, working in the community, with our presence, with providing the information that is necessary for families and students to be aware of what UWM is and be aware about the academic journey, right? The higher ed academic journey that it's so important in the lives of our young people. And finally, research has always been at the core of our work. Research that pertains to Latinos and the importance of highlighting our stories and documenting our stories, and more importantly, helping students think beyond getting a bachelor's degree and getting into graduate degrees in areas where they can they can blossom. So our work it's like I said before, you know, cemented in those three main pillars. And of course, this is a work that I don't do alone. This is a collective effort that has transcended many years. I know I stand on the shoulders of a lot of great mentors and individuals that had came before me and had, you know, established a lot of different initiatives and a lot of different things. But what it's really important, and I like to, you know, this opportunity to highlight that it was community 50 years ago, and just a handful of Latino students at UWM that dreamed about, you know, a center like the Roberto Hernandez, and you know, walked up to the chancellor's office and demanded that an office like ours needed to exist, and through negotiations and protests and activism, you know, it is that I can stand here today as not only as the director, but I'm a product of the center, right? I like Luis alluded earlier, I graduated from UWM with my bachelor's and master's, and if it wasn't for an office like the Roberto Hernandez, I would not be here speaking to all of you today. So I'm in a great position. My team is in a great position to pay it forward to the community, to our students, and to help advance and to dream about the next 50 years, right? Reaching this milestone is important, but also thinking about what we can do moving forward, particularly during this time where many of us have had to reinvent ourselves and really reinvent ourselves with great intentionality. Intentionality is key because, you know, today, you know, 50 years ago, we had 12 Latino students on campus. Today, we have close to 2,400. So we have grown tremendously. We have a great responsibility to those students who are aspiring to become the next leaders in this community. And these are young people from Milwaukee. 85% of our students commute to campus. So we know that we're serving the new generation of Latinos here in Milwaukee by means of those facts. So I take that responsibility. My team, you know, the academic team at the center, take that responsibility very seriously, and we're happy to be in that position to transform lives and to be you know, a place, a landing place for many of our families and students who are seeking a better life. So.
Excellent. Hey, well, thanks for that information. I got to tell you, so I commend you on leading that organization. As you can hear, it's critically important to the Latino community to have that sort of connection with education and with schooling. One question I do have, actually two questions I have for you. So this first one would be, we hear so much about the numbers and the growth rates for the Hispanic community around the country. Well, we're probably, if we're not the biggest ethnic group in the US right now, we're pretty close second, and we will soon eclipse whoever that is at number one in the next few years. So how does that translate to the growth rate that you've seen in education? Because of the rising population, have you seen a positive relation between those numbers and enrollments of Latino students at UWM?
Oh, most definitely. I think what we're seeing, or at least in my capacity, what I've been paying attention to probably in the last 10, 11 years is that steady growth that we're seeing, but not just a steady growth, but a very high interest in our students and our families to pursue that route of higher education. We have, it's no surprise here in Milwaukee, a number of different schools that have been recently opened, you know, high schools like, Cristo Rey, St. Augustine, the growth that we've seen at schools like St. Anthony and Carmen schools, and throughout the Milwaukee public schools as well. I mean, you'll see the growth within those institutions. If you break it down, at the K through 5, 1 and 3. When you go K to 12, it's like 1 and 5. If you go to higher ed, those numbers don't lie. I mean, Latinos are being represented in all and at all stages within the academic world. What it's important to highlight is that there's still challenges that students face and families face. Aspirationally speaking, we're seeing the demand and we're seeing the growth. And I think many of our institutions here in Milwaukee are responding to that growth. Right now there's nine institutions in this region that have, in some shape or form, declare their intentions to become a Hispanic serving institution. That says a lot. No one, perhaps 15 years ago, thought that in Wisconsin, in the middle, of the Midwest, there were Latinos. And now we're talking about nine institutions of higher ed, including UWM, Marquette, Alverno, MATC, Mount Mary, Parkside. I mean, and the list goes on, that are responding to the growth, not only the demographical growth, but also the quality of students that are coming out of our public schools, the quality of students that are coming out of our parochial and charter schools, and we're being very intentional in that work, because it's not about bringing the students to our institutions, particularly in my work. It's about bringing them in, retaining them, and graduating them successfully. So becoming a Hispanic serving and putting emphasis on the serving word is very important to me. It's important to us as an institution that we're serving them well, and that they feel like they belong on our campus.
Excellent. Thanks for that insight, Alberto. We certainly appreciate it. So we are going to move on to our next speaker now. And one of the things I did want to say about the conversation with Mr. Maldonado is one of the coolest things is you see that thread of a person that started as utilizing the Roberto Hernandez Center and is now the director of the same center, sort of giving back to the community in the same capacity. So that is a cool story and a career well lived. So big hugs to what you do, brother. We certainly appreciate it. So moving on, we are going to transition from education to art. And one thing I can say about the Latino community and about arts and expression through art, there probably isn't a single most important identifier that we have as a community than our expression through art, whether it's visual, whether it's music, whether it's on the stage. It is something that we hold near and dear to our hearts, and it has become one of our major exponents when we leave our countries and we start to assimilate in places like the United States. So we certainly appreciate the efforts that go along with people like Jacobo, who is the executive director for the Latino Arts Incorporated. So that is a non-for-profit organization within UCC, which is the United Community Center here in the city. He is an artist himself, actually serves on the board of the Marcus Performing Center for the Arts as well. And as mentioned, currently the executive director of Latino Arts. So he's heading up all those efforts in UCC. So welcome, Jacobo. Thank you so much for joining us. And the floor is yours, brother. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here along with the rest of the panelists, some people who are crucial to our community. So it's quite an honor to be in this company. My name is Jacobo Lobo, and I'm the Managing Artistic Director for Latino Art, which is located within the United Community Center. We are two separate 501c3 nonprofit organizations. However, we like to say that we are sister organizations. We really work in tandem with all the efforts we do for the community. One of our biggest components being the Latino Art String Students, which offers musical education to young people interested in becoming musicians within the Milwaukee area. Most of these students are located or go to the Bruce Guadalupe Community School, which is operated by the United Community Center. But Latino Arts itself, it's a cultural arts institution. We take great pride and care in how we approach our work, because we have, this immense responsibility to represent parts of the Latino community within our larger Milwaukee and Wisconsin community. It's very important for us that people understand that there isn't one Latino. I happen to be originally from Nicaragua. Alberto is originally from Puerto Rico, and then a lot of the largest subset of Latinos in Milwaukee happens to be from Mexico. So there is this deep breadth of culture heritage that we are amongst, and we love to celebrate that. And that really hits at the core of our mission, which is kind of to preserve and highlight those cultural traditions that come from all over the Hispanic diaspora or the Latino diaspora, whether it be the Caribbean, Mexico, Central and South America, and then also, parts of Europe where, through history have contributed to who we are as Latinos. But then also acknowledging that a lot of our rich culture comes also from Africa. Acknowledging our Afro Latinidad that has contributed so much to our favorite types of music and foods and dance. So the point there being that Latino is kind of a general term, and now we also acknowledge the Latinx component, because as our community becomes even more multi-generational, it's very important to understand that we continue to grow and be part of the United States in a very meaningful and impactful way, and we continue to use this as a strength, but also as an important tool to build cultural bridges, to invite other non-Latino communities to get to know us, and really put in a lot of effort and thought into dispelling some of the negative national stereotypes and narratives that are out there through the arts. It's very important for us to put the true face of who the Latino community is out there, and invite others to get to know us through our work. So I have some slides. If we'll go into my first slide. I want to invite all of you to come visit our gallery. We are open, and we are operating with limited gallery hours out of respect for public trust and safety. We do require that you wear a mask and sanitize upon entering our campus. We also have temperature thermometers that will check your temperature when you enter our campus, just so we can ensure a safe campus and a safe visiting experience for all. But we are very proud right now that our current exhibit that's still on view through October 2nd is Reynaldo Hernandez, 50 Years of Art and Cultural Diversity. And as you see on my slide, there's a little banner at the bottom. That lovely mural, it's a masterpiece by Reynaldo Hernandez, and that is right in front of the UCC building. That has greeted so many generations of Latinos that have come for school, different services at the UCC, our sister organization, for so many years. And I was joking with Reynaldo, I was like, you are one of two artists that gets to start his exhibit right outside our doors. And once you go into the exhibit, you can go to the next slide, please. You get to really see the labor of love that is 50 years worth of work. 50 years, Reynaldo Hernandez is like a true Milwaukee original. He's really a Milwaukee treasure. And I always say, you might not recognize his name, however, you know his work. And there we have him right next to a mural of peace, which created in 1994, and which is, one of the best and most beautiful landmarks that we have here in Milwaukee. You can see it as you go northbound on I-94, and it's just a testament to the ability and skill that Reynaldo has. Please go to the next slide. Great, and then here's another example of his work. This is called Cultural Chromosomes, which is on view in the exhibit. This is a beautiful 4x16 mural that we have in the gallery right now that he originally created to exhibit at the Milwaukee Art Museum. So we want to invite all of you to come visit Latino Arts. Like I said, we have limited gallery hours, and we are using a registration format. So you must register to visit, and that's just so we can guarantee the proper amount of people that are in the space, and we can guarantee that we can social distance. If we can go to the next slide, please. I wanted to tell you a little bit about our upcoming programming because it really hits at one of the quintessential celebrations that we have within the largest part of the Latino community here, which is Day of the Dead. And this tradition is a perfect example of how we build cultural bridges. This tradition has been kind of adopted by so many people that are not Latino, and even that they're not from Mexico, but it just kind of resonates with them, because it's such a moving way to remember our loved ones. So some of the celebrations that we're going to be doing for Day of the Dead, or some of the activities that we'll have for Day of the Dead, is our annual Community Ofrendas exhibit, which will open October 14th, and it will be on view through November 20th. We're going to split our reception this year in order to kind of control the number of people. We know that this is a very popular exhibit and people love to come out for it. So we'll be having 2 receptions for it with limited attendance, one on October 30th and another one on November 6th from 5 to 7:30. And as you can see, online registration is required. Please visit our website at latinoartsinc.org, and we will love to see you here for that lovely exhibit. Please go to the next slide. And then this year, as tradition calls for, we always have an amazing Dia de los Muertos concert. Sadly, well, the only sad feature is that we can't have it in person, but we are so proud to invite our friends, the Villalobos brothers, back for our annual Dia de los Muertos concert. And tickets are available on our website. This concert will be Monday, November 2nd, which is the actual day for Dia de los Muertos, and we will be streaming that we are going to be broadcasting that for ticket buyers at 7 p.m. So we hopefully have lots of people that will join us to celebrate Dia de los Muertos with the Villalobos brothers. Amazing, amazing musicians. Please go to the next slide. And then some more in-person programming that we have. We have our Café con Arte, which is a guided gallery tour for our Dia de los Muertos exhibit, which is featuring lots of traditional and non-traditional ofrendas. We are so proud to continue to count on the support and participation of the Mexican consulate here in Milwaukee, who will be installing a traditional ofrenda, and it'll be on view for everybody that visits the gallery to enjoy. We also have a Pinto con Tinto, which is our own take of kind of paint and sip activities. We do that here in our auditorium, and that will take place on November 5th. And then we also have our next Lunch and Learn, which will be on the topic of Dia de los Muertos rituals. And we are so thrilled that we're going to have an amazing panel discussion on the rituals associated with Dia de los Muertos. We will have Mr. Julian Aden, who's the head consul at the Mexican consulate, and also we have Dr. Laura Matthews, who is an amazing person and academic that specializes in pre-Columbian and early Mesoamerican cultures. So she knows a great deal of Dia de los Muertos and how it was celebrated before colonialism came to the Americas. So hopefully we'll have everybody join us on November 6th from 11:30 to 1 p.m. And please keep in mind that these are in-person program activities, so we hope to have you here. Therefore, there'll be limited capacity, and we do require that you wear a mask when you are on campus. Next slide, please. And with that, I want to invite everybody to stay connected with Latino Arts. For our programming, please visit our website, which is www.latinoartsinc.org, and follow us on social media at Latino Arts Inc. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I just wanted to also share something that's very important, and that is that Wisconsin ranks 50th in the nation in public funding for arts and culture, and that's per capita. Even before COVID-19, our state arts, were at a serious disadvantage. And we are really proud to work along with Imagine MKE and be parts of Arts Wisconsin, who are tremendous advocates for legislation and arts funding. So Imagine MKE at a local level, but also Arts Wisconsin at a state level, but they work in tandem. So we want to encourage everybody to stay connected with those organizations too. And if you feel passionate and strongly about the arts, please connect with them and see what you can do in terms of getting in touch with your state representatives, so we can continue to support all the arts here in Milwaukee, because Latino Arts is very proud to be parts of this arts ecosystem here in Wisconsin, and we want to make sure that we all are able to get through this COVID-19 mess healthy and together. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that presentation. Just one quick follow-up question. And first of all, commend you on getting into the history of the Latino culture. I think that's one of the most interesting things that we have to offer. And one of the most interesting things that I explain to people, that Latino embodies so many different countries and cultures and dialects and customs and traditions, and it's just not one people. It represents the culmination and truly the diversity and inclusion of a lot of different cultures and countries. But you did mention how people, particularly when they come here and they assimilate in the United States, how it's important that we still represent our own culture where we come from. So when you are putting together art events and when you're putting together shows and artistic displays, how do you accommodate those different cultures without marginalizing any one culture, so someone doesn't feel that, hey, I'm being left out of the group or I'm being left out of the mix? So for example, anytime I go to an event and Latino sort of themed event, I say, well, where's the Puerto Rican stuff? That's what I want to see. So how do you accommodate that kind of stuff from a group representation that is really the culmination of so many different cultures?
And that's a fantastic question, and it's something that we really put a lot of thought and effort behind. Right now we're going into our Dia de los Muertos exhibit, which is primarily focused within the Mexican community. But it's one of those things that kind of invites others to participate. But beyond that, we really try varying the amount of artists or the artists that we work with. We're really proud that coming up in early 2021, we are going to have an exhibit by the Luna Collective, which is an all-female Latinx collective here in Milwaukee. And the diversity that we're speaking about within the Latino community is going to be so prevalent within that exhibit. So we try varying the types of programming that we offer, so people can see themselves represented. Sometimes it goes in order. Sometimes we bring in bands that are local or national and also international. Not too long ago, we had La Dama play our stage, and that was December of last year. And La Dama is this really Pan-American band, not from Panama, it expands the entire Americas. They have band members from Brazil, Panama, Colombia, and even here in the United States. And so we really try varying the types of artists that we bring to Latino arts and who we have exhibiting here, so the entire community can see themselves represented. I also wanted to say that today at 11:30, we have our own lunch event. We have a webinar that will be broadcasting on Facebook Live. And the theme of that discussion is going to be murals, community voices through a public art. And our panel discussion there, it represents some really powerful Black and Brown voices from our community. We have Brad Bernard and Tia Richardson, who are two Black muralists here in Milwaukee. But we also have Reynaldo Hernandez and Isabel Castro, who is currently a junior at UWM studying architecture. But she's also a very talented muralist here in Milwaukee. They're going to have a meaningful discussion about what functions does murals have, what functions do murals have within communities. And the whole event is going to be moderated by Katie Avila Lugmiller, who's one of the founders of Luna. So with that in mind is that we're creating space for the community to have a voice and have these deep conversations about what functions do the arts have, but not only for Latinos, but also inviting other communities of color to have that conversation along with us. So we really put a lot of effort and thought into how our programming is furthering the conversation and moving the needle forward to create equity and in our community.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that answer, man. Very well said. And applause to you for what you do, and thanks for representing our community so beautifully through art. Your efforts do not go unnoticed. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Moving on to our last but certainly not least speaker. So we make the transition from education to art, and finally we move into the business and the commerce space. So it is with extreme honor and pleasure to present Ms. Nancy Hernandez. I haven't had a chance to meet her personally, but we did speak on the phone, so I guess we're family. That makes us family in a Latino community, right? So honored to have you as part of this panel. As most of you don't know, Nancy is the president of Hispanic Collaborative. That's an initiative involving more than 150 organizations and individuals seeking representation and economic opportunity development opportunities within the Latino region. She's also the founder of Abrazo, which means hug, and that is a multicultural marketing and communication firm which connects companies that want to reach the Hispanic, African American, and Asian audiences as well. And you also sit on, I think, like 2 million different boards around here in the city. So your work is extensive and it's expansive, and we are very happy to have you as part of this discussion. So with that, I will give you the floor and kind of take us through your journey and what your organizations do for the community. So you are on.
Thank you so much, Luis. Very happy to be here. Thank you for Visit Milwaukee for putting this together. And it's always great to see Jacobo and Alberto. So I'm happy to share the screen or today's screen with them. I am just wanted to check that people can see my PowerPoint. I'm not sure if you can or if you can't. I am trying to share screen. You can see it. Luis gives me a thumbs up. Great. Because I wanted to share a little bit about what the Hispanic Collaborative is. And we are a relatively new organization. We have maybe a year and a half under our belts. And so I wanted to share a little bit about what that is. And then also share some insight into today's unique time frame of COVID-19, a global pandemic, and what that means for our local Latino community. So the first thing I want to share is what the Hispanic Collaborative is. So in 2016, roughly, the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, with the assistance of the Center for Urban Studies out of UWM, put together a report that talked about what had happened over the past 2 decades with the Latino population. And it was really from that report that the Latino community was able to have some statistical information to what we kind of felt anecdotally was happening, which was that there were some key variables in relation to the health and wealth of the community that were on a negative trajectory. And we really wanted to get our arms around that and turn those around, not just for the benefit of the Latino community, but really for the benefit of the broader region. One thing that report did show to us is that the Latino community has been responsible for 100% of the net population growth in the region and 100% of the job growth. So if we had pulled the Hispanic community out over the past 2 decades, we would have experienced negative job growth and negative population growth. And so knowing that this community is a really big part of powering our progress, powering our economic prosperity, is important, not just for Latinos, but for the entire region, for us to get our arms around this and really make this as healthy a sector as we can. And so what we did was we wanted a way to compare how Milwaukee was doing against 50 other Hispanic metros around the US. And really to identify who was performing well and how were there some things that they were doing that we could copy here. And so we came up with the Hispanic Well-Being Index, which is a way for us to compare Milwaukee then against those 50 metros. And what you have in front of you is there are 20 different variables that fall into income and wealth, employment, and health variables. And this is what we track, and it rolls up into one number, and then that's the number we use to compare ourselves to other communities. And Milwaukee, we have done 2 of these now. We have crunched the data, so to speak, 2 times. And Milwaukee is 44th against 50 metros. So you know as well as I do, that doesn't necessarily, that's not a good number. We want to see that up, way up there. And really that's what the Hispanic Collaborative is all about. How could we take the organizations, both within and outside the Latino community, the ganas of the community, if you will, and begin to align some of these things behind goals and objectives that move Milwaukee from 44th to top 10. So that's what we do at the Hispanic Collaborative. During COVID-19, we've been pretty busy, and certainly because we have been focused, if we think pre-COVID-19, we have been focused on upskilling and reskilling. We have a lot of our community that is working. We perform very well in employment. However, we also perform, unfortunately, very well in poverty. And so one of our initiatives was in workforce development and shifting folks from $10 to $12 an hour jobs into $20, $25 an hour jobs. The other area was in business and the number of Latino-owned businesses specifically, and then in civic participation. And so those were our 3 areas, and all of those 3, as you can imagine, become much more important during COVID-19. So we have had research crews out for the entire month of September, and they will be out until the end of the year to really understand what is the local impact that COVID-19 is having on Latino-owned businesses and on the population. I think in the beginning remarks, Luis and Peggy shared that we are having a slight spike going on, unfortunately, right now on COVID-19. And from what we know on the headlines, we all know that Latinos, unfortunately, are leading both at the state and at the county level. So we can look at a little bit of those numbers. But we wanted to see numerically what that is, because in order to right the ship, right, we need to know how bad the bleeding is. And that's really what this research is about. So we can really advocate for and apply the right resources. One thing I want to share that happened during the last recession, or recovery from the last recession, is that the disparities grew between white and Hispanic communities, white and African American communities, and Milwaukee needs to be intentional about not having that happen again. So we really believe this research is important. I'm going to just give you some quick highlights, but hopefully it'll make you think about what's going on right now in the Latino community. This, we asked our businesses, how have they been operating during and amongst this pandemic? So a couple numbers for us to look at if we look at these numbers in aggregate. 53% of our Latino-owned businesses closed for a time frame. And additionally, 58% are operating, whether it was continuous or after closure, with reduced hours and services. So for all of you owners on the call today, that's probably sounds pretty familiar, and we also know what that does to impact sales. We asked our Latino-owned businesses how have their sales levels changed. 55% of our businesses are operating at 50% of their pre-COVID-19 sales levels. 73% of our Latino-owned businesses are at 50% of less of sales. And many of these businesses, 50% of them are represented in retail and food service. Those are two big sectors for Latino-owned businesses. So some of them might be on the audience today and certainly very invested in what's happening here and the advocacy, great advocacy being done by Visit Milwaukee. We asked them also how long do they estimate they can survive at current sales levels. 16% estimate that they can survive only 6 months or less. 25% of them 6 months to 1 year. So these are the businesses we're really concerned about. We need to make sure that we're getting them support so that we don't have 50% closure rate in our Latino-owned businesses. And then in terms of some of the resources that are out there, 40% of them have not applied for any type of assistance whatsoever. I want to give you just a couple points on what's happening with households. And if we think about Latino households, we want to give you a snapshot of what's happening in employment. So pre-COVID-19, we had about 77% full-time employment, which has now slid to 66%. Part-time employment is up, moving from 18 to 27%, thinking about hours being shifted and folks moving from full-time to part-time. And then unemployment is also up. This represents about 350 Latino adults surveyed, from 4% to 7%. If we think about how they are behaving with COVID-19, we ask them, do you always wear a mask? Or if not, what frequency? And certainly we want to hear always when you're in public. 10% of our population right now is not admitting to not always wearing a mask in public settings. And 4% are not wearing a mask at work. And that's not related. That number is independent of those that can't wear one because of their position. We also asked, we always talk about access to healthcare, and 16% of our respondents, if they were exposed to somebody who tested positive or showing symptoms, were not certain they would get a COVID-19 test. So I wanted to share just a couple of those statistics with you today. I also have, you can see this is from April 1st, we've been tracking the Latino numbers in infection rates in COVID-19 in the county. So we are up to, this number is as of yesterday, 8,471 Latino individuals, which is 31% of all the COVID-19 cases and represents a little over 5.5% of the entire Latino population in the county. So those are big percentages. And I'm going to take you back to your algebra days. You know, the higher the slope, the more it looks like this as opposed to like this. Those are higher rates of infection. So after coming, you know, this represents in this stretch right here, in the between, you know, if we look at the previous numbers, that represents about 40 infections a day. Unfortunately, in the last week, that number is up again, and we're seeing about 60 infections a day. So that's why you see the slope of that curve, if you will, show up. So we want flat curves. So I'll stop sharing now, and I know that you have some questions that you want to go through, Lisa, or any questions from the audience?
Actually, I do have a general question. So you mentioned the business closures among the Latino community. I'm just curious if you have numbers as to how those numbers compare to the overall population. How does the Latino closures compare to the non-Latino community closures?
Yeah, so what I will share with you is during times of crisis, if we think about any crisis, it could be a hurricane, it could be a fire. During times of crisis, the normal or the baseline percentage of closures is about 25% of small businesses close because of a response to any type of crisis. So that's really the baseline. Right now, if we look at what happened during the last recovery timeframe, during the Great Recession in 2008, Latino numbers are much higher of Latino-owned businesses that closed, closer to a 50% number. And that's what we're really trying to identify here of, how much higher is our trajectory than the general population, and can we bring that number down? So, it seems like a very hard pill to swallow, but how do we move it down so we only have 25% closure versus 50% closure?
That's interesting. And the percentage number that you put out, and sorry, I'm so focused on the numbers. I'm a finance guy. Anytime I see a percentage number, I get really excited. So I need to talk about it. So that 41% that you said of Latino businesses that don't apply for any funding or aid or anything like that, what are the obstacles there? Why is that number so high? Is it a language barrier? Is it not having a platform to access that type of information? What are the main drivers of that number?
So there's a couple reasons, and I'll talk about three of them. One is many times a Latino-owned business might not be eligible to apply for those funds, right? If we think, one number that I'll share with you that is probably startling to everyone is 60% of Latino-owned businesses nationwide are owned by immigrants. Foreign-born individuals, right? They may or may not have documentation. That's not the issue, but they're foreign-born, and that fuels a lot of our small business development, right? It's the American dream in live action, if you will. But there are a percentage of those owners then that aren't eligible for applying for some of that federal stimulus dollars that came through, or may not be eligible to apply for state or local funding, depending on how those programs are written. The other piece that we know is happening to keep that, that 40% number, which is a big number, up there, is digital literacy. Over 50% of our Latino-owned businesses do not have a social media presence, a website presence, an e-commerce platform, and they have challenges in digital literacy. And when you need to apply for funding and align in a digital way and align all of your necessary pieces that way, that also creates an obstacle. The other is, if we think about information, technical assistance, and door-to-door that's necessary to ensure that Latinos know about these programs and if they're eligible and get the assistance to do that. We have some wonderful organizations that are doing technical assistance. Latino Chamber, WIBIC is out there, BizStarts, but we definitely need more individuals with Spanish language capabilities out there working with our businesses.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that information. I think that highlights the fact that we not only need to support our local Latino businesses, but there are some obstacles that are unique to our community that perhaps aren't present in others that need special and more specialized attention. So thank you so much, Nancy Hernandez, for that talk, for that speech. I think we learned a lot. We certainly thank your organization for doing what you guys do to help out our community. We are running down on time, so we have 2 minutes left. So with that, I think what we've done, we kind of changed the program and we kind of ad-libbed a little bit as we went along. So we peppered the questions in with your presentation. So I just want to take this opportunity, this last minute or so, to thank everyone who was on this panel. And again, thank you so much for representing our beautiful culture and our communities in what you do, whether it's art, whether it's education, whether it's business. And we certainly appreciate all that stuff from you guys. So Fuerte abrazo to all you guys, and thanks so much for participating in this webinar. I'll let you guys go on that.
Thank you.
All right. Happy Friday.